Good afternoon, everyone. Happy long weekend. I hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving weekend. So I'm going to highlight some interesting reporting and the Syrian minister's UN speech on at the end of September 29th, I believe it was, where he says we're ready for refugees to return home, and what Canada's plan is going forward for refugees, and what I think about that, I guess. And well, we're going to get into it. So this is Maclean's article. So it says, quote, why Canada will lead the charge on the UN's global refugee plan. It's an op-ed. The UN's global compact on refugees could be a game changer, and Canada is well placed to help make it a reality, say two cabinet ministers and a UN official. And the cabinet ministers are Ahmed Hussein, and well, that's the high-profile one. That's the only one I'll name for now. Okay, so quote, there are a few moments in history where the world comes together to devise a new plan that holds the promise of improving the lives of millions of people. The global compact on refugees, which has now been released after 2 years of consultation with member states, intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and refugees themselves, and will be formally adopted by the UN General Assembly in the next couple of months, has the potential to be one of those moments. I mean, sell it a little harder, eh, Maclean's? The compact isn't just a bunch of words on paper. Oh, wonderful reporting. It represents the common understanding and political commitment to protect and find solutions for refugees differently. This is why it lists new strategies and specific goals. Through regular follow-up meetings on the compact, member states and partners will thus hold each other more accountable on their promises to deliver results for refugees and their hosts. Yeah, all of these words sound really great, but there's no numbers for these metrics. And I've actually been through the documents they're talking about, and there really aren't a whole lot of metrics here and here. And we'll look into it further, and it may be in another video. But the Compac and the resolutions passed governing refugees are interesting, to say the least. And probably, I mean, that's what the initial genesis of this video was, to look into them, but they're just too massive by themselves. So this is kind of an offshoot of that, and it's referencing it. But anyway, back to the article. The compact isn't just a bunch of words on paper, but it is exactly that. It represents the common understanding that political commitment through regular follow-up meetings, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I already said that. The starting premise of the compact is that caring for those forced to flee their homes is a shared responsibility that must be borne more equally and predictably. As stated by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and there's a nice big platitude there, and he says at the end, it calls upon all players, development actors, the private sector, non-governmental and faith-based organizations, and states to contribute. And states doesn't mean like United States states. It means like state actors within the UN, to contribute and share responsibilities in a fair manner. And they're talking about money here, and the money that it costs to house these refugees, right? So, okay, back to the article. Canada was actively involved in the drafting of the compact with inputs from domestic NGOs. Canada was one of the first countries to offer concrete suggestions in the early days of the consultations around issues that the compact should highlight and address, from the benefits of refugees, economic inclusion, to the imperative of increasing political and financial support for frontline housing countries, to ways to increase pathways to durable solutions in third countries, to the specific vulnerabilities faced by refugee women and girls. I guess that's what they were doing while they should have been negotiating NAFTA. So Canada is committed to the task of leading and encouraging other partners to realize its ambitious goals to ensure the action breathes life into the words of the compact. Okay. The compact's goals are, after all, ambitious. The first is clear: to ease the pressures on countries that welcome and host large numbers of refugees, mainly in the Middle East and sub-Saharan Africa. Frontline countries like Turkey, Lebanon, Uganda, Bangladesh have argued that the impact of housing hundreds of thousands or even millions of refugees is significant, especially as it's often after a sudden influx. They are right. Distributing safe drinking water, putting kids in schools, or providing maternal health care to pregnant women and logistical and costly endeavors. These countries are unfairly being asked to carry the burden simply as a result of their geography, and as they nobly keep their borders open to those fleeing for their lives from neighboring states. Right, and I guess that they're also similar faith to the people who are fleeing if they're right on their borders. So keeping their borders open, are they keeping their borders open? Is that what they're doing? Okay, I wanted to point this out just briefly before we get to the point, and I'll get there really quick. But Who contributes the most to the regular UN budget? As expected, the United States of America contributes highest share with 22%. And Japan contributes second highest with 9.68%. China is after them. Germany after them. France at 4%. UK at 4%. Brazil is at 3.8%. And Canada, we're at not 2.9%. We're almost hitting 3%. We're just behind Russia. And we're the ones saying, hold on, we've got to spend more, and we're going to spend those UN dollars to help those refugees. That's what we're doing instead of talking with President Trump. Okay, so remember what was said here, that frontline countries like Turkey, Lebanon, and Uganda and Bangladesh have argued that the impact of housing these, of hosting hundreds of thousands or even millions of refugees is significant, especially as it's after a sudden influx, blah, 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 blah. Here's President Trump. Talking about, it says President Trump's claim that 10 refugees overseas cost as much as one in the U.S. And here we'll let him say it. Make sure it's up.
Is a compassionate nation and has spent billions and billions of dollars in helping to support this effort. We seek an approach to refugee resettlement that is designed to help these horribly treated people and which enables their eventual return to their home countries to be part of the rebuilding process. For the cost of resettling one refugee in the United States, we can assist more than 10 in their home region.
Okay, and so, and I don't have math to back that up. This whole Washington Post article, link will be in the description, as with everything I talk about, is a hit piece on that. It's meant to disprove it, but we just read that it's really expensive for frontline countries, right? Like, and they're right there. They don't have to fly them here. They don't have to do anything. They're just right there, and it's really expensive to do this. But here, this whole article is talking about how President Trump is it says, as it turned out, the Department of Health and Human Services in July had drafted a 52-page report, and the link is there, that attempted to assess the cost of refugees in response to a presidential order in March for the State Department and other agencies to tally the cost of helping refugees in the United States. The report is comprehensive, with a review of the literature on the subject that included an examination of the CIS report. The HHS report is open about the shortcomings in the data and uncertainties in the estimates, but as the New York Times reported, the White House killed the DDH, which attempted to tally the costs and benefits. The Times later published the Squelch report on its website. The HHS looked at a 10-year cost for all refugees, not just the Middle East, and came up with a figure of nearly $7,134 a year. That's just over half the estimate by CIS. But then HHS took it one step further and estimated the taxes paid by refugees, including payroll, income tax, property tax, sales tax, and the like, and the net fiscal impact was $63 billion over 10 years, the agency said. In other words, over time, taxes paid by refugees easily exceeded the cost to taxpayers. So these guys want it both ways. On one hand, it's really expensive. Turkey and Lebanon and Uganda are unfairly having to shoulder these costs. And on the other hand, President Trump's an idiot. Of course it doesn't cost anything because they pay it back in taxes. You know, you just have to pay to get them here and put them up in a hotel. Oh, wait, no, this is the United States, not Canada. So the $7,000 a year is not what it costs in Canada to house a refugee, because we put them up in hotels and we give them money, and et cetera, et cetera. But that is a different video. But this isn't. Canada's backlog system is not sustainable, Immigration Minister says in leaked letter. And it says the number of people seeking asylum in Canada is rising far beyond what the existing system can handle, according to recent letter from Immigration Minister Ahmed Hassan, obtained by the National Post. Without changes to improve efficiency and productivity of the asylum process, wait times and backlogs will continue to grow. So I just wanted to point out that even the wild mismanagement that we've seen is a small amount of influx, and our system is already overwhelmed. And I'm telling you right now, the way they're going to try and fix it is just by reclassifying everybody here as citizens, and then we have a citizen problem, not a refugee problem, or an irregular crosser problem. And the irregular crosser language is found in the in this document here, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, so we'll just scroll to the top. Yes, the New York Declaration for Refugees. The irregular crosser is mentioned in this document, but I'm getting a little off topic. So either refugees cost a lot of money and the UN through the US needs to redistribute money to these countries Bangladesh, Lebanon, Turkey, Uganda, or President Trump is crazy and refugees inject billions of dollars over the years and easily pay for themselves very quickly, no problems at all. Why are you crazy? The whole article is condescending as all get out. It's unbelievable. Like, it's not unbelievable when you know what's going on. When you see that what they're trying to do is influence your opinion of it. It's very clear. So, which is it? Does it cost money, or is it free? Here's the president of Syria saying, our country is safe for the return of refugees. How come Canada's not sending refugees back?
Ladies and gentlemen, today, the situation on the ground is more stable and secure thanks to progress made in combating terrorism. The government continues to rehabilitate the areas destroyed by terrorists to restore normalcy. All conditions are now present for the voluntary return of Syrian refugees to the country they had to leave because of terrorism and the unilateral economic measures that targeted their daily lives and their livelihoods. True enough, thousands of Syrian refugees abroad have started the journey back home.
So I'll leave it there. If you want to watch the whole speech, you're welcome to. There's some other aspects of this that I think are worth the watch. If you've never seen this Immigration, World Poverty, and Gumballs, the link will be in the description. I'm going to show you just a couple of minutes of the beginning and the end, and because I just think it's so on topic and it drives the point home so well.
Some people say that mass immigration into the United States can help reduce world poverty. Is that true? Well, no, it's not. And let me show you why. This gumball represents the 1 million legal immigrants that the United States has taken every year on average since 1990. Now, who in the world deserves our humanitarian compassion? The World Bank has one measure of the desperately poor of the world. They make less than $2 a day. And how many people make less than $2 a day in the world? We'll start with Africa. In Africa alone, there are 6.
Okay, and at that point he goes through and puts up the world population in gumballs and shows you really clearly with a really nice visual representation of what the world population looks like and what immigration looks like throughout the whole presentation. And I'll just take it to the point here. It's worth the watch, though. Link's in the description, and there's a couple of other variants as well that are worth the watch as well.
Because last year, when we took 1 million immigrants, these countries added, births over deaths, 80 million more people into the impoverished population. And this year, Congress is bringing in 1 million legal immigrants. And this year, according to the United Nations, these countries are expected to add another 80 million people. And next year, you can be quite sure that Congress, unless stopped by the American voters, will bring in another 1 million immigrants. And these countries, unfortunately, will be adding another 80 million people into these impoverished nations. We could take 5 million a year, but we'd never get ahead of what's happening in these countries. Not in this century. Don't you see? Immigration can never be an effective or significant way to deal with the suffering people of the world.
I'll leave it there, but really, you should watch the whole thing. He drives the point home so meticulously and so visually clearly. I mean, it's hard to dispute the argument. There'll be more in this series. We're going to look really a lot closer at these UN, the Global Compact on refugees, and the New York, what's it called? The New York Declaration for Refugees and Migrants. We're going to have to look at this more because Canada is supposed to be leading the way on this. I think this is wrong. I don't think this is the right direction for Canada. I don't think this is the right direction for the world. I think that that's not how we're going to solve our collective problems. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay safe. Hug your loved ones a little bit closer. It's that time of year.